Hello, and thank you for joining us again at Voice of Rohingya Radio, a media broadcast of Friends of Rohingya USA, a registered nonprofit offering social and humanitarian support to people in need. Voice of Rohingya Radio is your source for news concerning struggles the ethnic minorities of Burma face each week. We provide exclusive interviews, reports from inside the border, and the latest news from reputable sources around the world. We ask that you take a moment and go to friendsofrohingya.org for up-to-date news and information concerning this program and how you can get involved. You can learn more about the Rohingya cause by supporting Friends of Rohingya USA today. Voice of Rohingya Radio is the only news source of its kind in the English-speaking world, bringing you the latest news in a convenient format and keeping you informed and involved. You can listen to our program each week, Sundays at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, or search for us on SoundCloud.com. To sponsor our program, simply log on to our website or send us an email to support@friendsofrohingya.org. It is May 17th, 2015. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, I am your host, Zach Taylor. In our top story tonight, as reported by Reuters, the flow of desperate migrants across the Bay of Bengal will continue unless Myanmar ends discrimination against Rohingya Muslim minority, UN Human Rights Chief Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein said on Friday. Until the Myanmar government addresses the institutional discrimination against the Rohingya population, including equal access to citizenship, this precarious migration will continue, he said in a statement. Zeid said the situation in Myanmar's Rakhine state, the origin of many of the migrants, was one of the principal motivators of these desperate maritime movements. Criminalizing such vulnerable people, including children, and placing them in detentions is not the solution, he said. Around 25,000 migrants, mainly Rohingyas and Bangladeshis, fled by boat in the first 3 months of this year. Many smuggled or trafficked to Thailand and held in camps until they paid to reach the Malaysian border. Thousands have been abandoned at sea in flimsy vessels after Thailand launched a crackdown on people smugglers. The navies of Southeast Asian countries have pushed away many from their coasts. Over the past week, nearly 2,500 have drifted onto the shores of Malaysia and Indonesia. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, appealed on Tuesday for an international search and rescue operation for many stranded at sea. I am appalled at reports that Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia have been pushing boats full of vulnerable migrants back out to sea, which will inevitably lead to many avoidable deaths. The focus should be on saving lives, not further endangering them, Zeid said. He said the latest report of the Thai Navy forcing a boat carrying several hundred people back out to sea after supplying it with provisions was incomprehensible and inhumane. According to Business Insider, Washington raised the pressure on Southeast Asia to open its ports to boat people on Saturday, after migrants described a terrifying battle for survival between Rohingya and Bangladeshi passengers as their shunned vessel sank off Indonesia. The U.S. State Department said John Kerry had phoned his Thai counterpart to discuss the situation of migrants in the Andaman Sea and to discuss the possibility of Thailand providing temporary shelter for them. We urge the government in the region to refrain from pushbacks of new boat arrivals, State Department spokesperson Jeff Rothke said. He called on Southeast Asian authorities to work together quickly, first and foremost, to save the lives of migrants. Southeast Asia is in the grips of a deepening crisis over a flood of boat people, with Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand coming under pressure to rescue the starving and helpless migrants from Bangladesh and Myanmar's oppressed Muslim Rohingya minority. Survivors of a boat that sank off the east coast of Sumatra Island, among roughly 900 people rescued off Indonesia on Friday, described a violent struggle between Bangladeshis and Rohingya for scarce food and space. They were killing each other, throwing people overboard, said Sunyara, a police chief of the city of Langsa near where they were rescued. The jam-packed boat had put to sea 2 months ago, and with supplies running low, its Thai captain would shoot dead migrants who asked for food, said Muhammad Amin, a Rohingya. The captain and crew abandoned ship earlier this week as the boat was turned away first by Indonesia and then Malaysia. The Rohingya won a violent struggle for remaining supplies, said Bangladeshi survivor Muhammad Koyes. When we asked for food, they beat us. The Bangladeshis were very weak, so we could not fight back, he said. More fighting broke out as the boat took on water, Muhammad Amin said, and he and others were thrown overboard. He drifted for 6 hours before being rescued. Thank God we survived. I have a wife and children in Malaysia, he said. Nearly 600 migrants were already sheltering in Sumatra's Aceh province after managing to get ashore in recent days. The flow has surged recently as traffickers have duped migrants by waiving payments for passage, said Kla Mient, a Rohingya leader in a refugee camp near the Rakhine state capital Sitwe. Instead, they later demanded ransoms from migrant families once at sea or ashore in Thailand or Malaysia. The trend has contributed to boats being held at sea for weeks. UN Chief Ban Ki-moon has called for migrants to be rescued, and his High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein, said Friday he was appalled at the migration boat pushbacks, warning that more will die. But the head of Indonesia's armed forces stood firm. Boat people will not be allowed to enter our region. If they do, they may create social problems, General Moel Doko said, according to state-run media. Amid regional finger-pointing, Myanmar, which insists Rohingya are not its problem, has snubbed a Thai call for a May 29th crisis summit. Human rights lawyer Eric Paulson has waded into the Rohingya refugee crisis by offering free legal representation for activists who go to sea to help the boat people. He made the offer in a series of tweets today trying to encourage Malaysians to help the Rohingya. Paulson is one of the many activists who have spoken out on the refugee issue by condemning the Malaysian government's reluctance to aid them. Empathizing with the plight of the immigrants who were caught between a rock and a hard place, Paulson says that political parties and ethnic groups do not support them. Not an offense to help or rescue the stranded Rohingya dying at sea. Would be extremely foolish for authorities to act against aid workers, one of his tweets read. Another read, so aid workers out there, please do your best to help the Rohingya stranded at sea. Be careful but have no fear, your cause is right. And another, if any aid worker gets in trouble with authorities for helping Rohingya at sea, Lawyers for Liberty will provide pro bono legal representation. Lawyers for Liberty is the human rights organization of which he is the executive director. He said refugees were entitled to international protection, arguing that it's a shared burden by all. Paulson, who posts regularly on Twitter, has faced police action for sedition twice this year as a result of comments he made in his Twitter postings. You are listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio, your source for Rohingya news. We'd like to remind you to log on to www.friendsofrohingya.org to get involved and to show your support. The Myanmar Times reached one of the trafficking vessels on May 16th, where people were crammed into an open deck in the midday sun, huddled together. Women and children were crying, while others made pleading gestures with their arms. The green and red fishing boat was flying a flag proclaiming the passengers are Myanmar Rohingya. The boat was still adrift between the two countries this morning and had re-entered Thai waters, according to naval authorities. Storms overnight only added to the misery of those on board, most of whom are living out in the open. Passengers on the boat told reporters on May 14th that they had been at sea for 3 months and that the boat's captain and crew abandoned them 6 days earlier. 10 people died during the voyage and their bodies were thrown overboard, the passengers said. The boat has been drifting between Malaysia and Thai waters for several days. It was intercepted by the Thai Navy on the afternoon of May 14th and then towed out to sea, but by 12:30 on May 16th, when the Myanmar Times saw the boat, it had re-entered Thai waters and was being towed back to sea by the Thai Navy. After the Navy let it go, the boat then turned toward Malaysia, where 2 ships, apparently belonging to Malaysian maritime authorities, were waiting. Thai authorities have said that they will allow those on board the vessel to enter Thailand, but they will be charged under the country's immigration laws. If they want to land in Thailand, they have to accept our law, which means they will face immigration charges, but at least they will receive assistance. Lieutenant Commander Wirepong said. According to the Thai Navy officers who towed the boat back out to sea, some of those on board had wanted to land in Thailand, despite the threat of criminal charges, but had been persuaded not to by others on board who were determined to continue to Malaysia. It remains unclear whether there are still traffickers on board the vessel. Bernama News reported that Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia said that the Myanmar government should take responsibility to solve the Rohingya ethnic issue within the country. He said the matter was needed so that the other ASEAN member nations were not burdened by the problem of Rohingya illegal immigrants in their countries. What is the responsibility of the Myanmar government? Is there any humanitarian aspect for them to solve this matter internally? Eventually, the burden will be borne by ASEAN countries neighboring Myanmar, he told a news conference after officiating a charity golfing event on Sunday. He was asked to comment on Malaysia's stand on the Rohingya ethnic issue in Malaysia. According to the DPM, the government seriously viewed the issue involving Rohingya refugees in Malaysia and hoped the foreign ministry could address the matter wisely. Subsequently, he said the cabinet had decided that Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Anifah Aman held discussions with the countries involved, including Myanmar, Indonesia, and Thailand, to find a solution to the issue. This is a big issue for us because it concerns national security and humanitarian issues. The cabinet has discussed the issue seriously, and we have decided that the foreign ministers of Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand liaise with Myanmar to discuss it. We want their Rohingya influx to be under control before it becomes a big burden to the country, as it is understood that thousands have come here. This should be the responsibility of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but it seems that the responsibility is not that effective, he said. We do not want to give the wrong signal to this group. If they are being treated accordingly, we are worried that thousands more will land on our shores, he concluded. In other news, persecution of the Rohingya minority by the Myanmar government amounts to genocide, according to field research from the International State Crime Initiative, based at Queen Mary University of London. Experts from ISCI, led by Professor Penny Green, conducted 4 months of fieldwork in Myanmar between October 2014 and March of 2015. The team was based primarily in Rakhine State, the home of the Muslim minority. There they undertook detailed research which exposes the Myanmar state's crimes against the Rohingya. The current crisis is, according to Professor Green, the direct result of government-sponsored actions against the Rohingya, which together amount to genocide. The Myanmar government's ongoing persecution of the Rohingya minority has, in the last 2 years, reached a level so untenable that tens of thousands have been forced to flee on boats. The current exodus of those seeking asylum is just one manifestation of persecution consistent with genocide, said Professor Green. According to Professor Green, there is a general reluctance to define an event as genocide until after mass killings begin. However, ISCI research reveals that the historic and current conditions of persecution against the Rohingya minority have developed into genocidal practice. Our research is being conducted within a state crime framework in which genocide is understood as a process building over a period of years and involving an escalation in the dehumanization and persecution of the target group. The Rohingya have been subject to stigmatization, harassment, isolation, and systematic weakening. The Rohingya are faced with only 2 options: stay and face annihilation or flee. Those who remain suffer destitution, malnutrition, and starvation, severe physical and mental illness, restrictions on movement, education, marriage, childbirth, livelihood, land ownership, and the ever-present threat of violence and corruption, Professor Green concluded. One of our sources from inside the Myanmar border is saying that while thousands of Rohingya lives hang in the balance in the Andaman Sea, the Myanmar government is hastily trying to hide its crimes in Arakan, with some calling it proof that the Rakhine state governing machinery is involved in this human tragedy. Some Rohingya waiting on boats which have not yet started their journey towards Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia due to pushback concerns are returning from the boats in an attempt to back out of the disembarkation and return home. Those hoping to get back off the boats and return home are being held ransom for money. One group, bound for Malaysia and comprising of about 25 Rohingya men and women, has reached shore in Ale Thang Ya sub-township some 15 miles south of Maung Da. As they came ashore, they were hijacked by agents and locked in a house in Ale Thang Ya until ransom money can secure their release. The hijacking drama is known to many in the village and other areas, but people fear taking action against those responsible. According to the report, there are 5 human trafficking agents who are being protected by the village chairman. These agents are also reportedly being abetted by the border guard police, army, and local police who are being bribed by the traffickers to assist and protect the illegal activities. Yesterday, a 16-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl were freed, but only after paying hundreds of US dollars. Others are still hostage inside the house while the agents are roaming in the village without fear of arrest. Law enforcement agencies are purportedly helping by retrieving ransom money from families. Our source concluded that the general Rohingya population is dejected over the situation, but no one has dared to come for rescue or asked for help as security forces and administration are in cahoots with the traffickers. Thanks again for listening to Voice of Rohingya Radio, a weekly news program bringing you up-to-date information about the Rohingya people in Myanmar. You can catch our broadcast every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Time here in the United States by logging on to vorradio.org, or you can join our page on Facebook to find more information on the program. For Voice of Rohingya Radio, this is Zach Taylor, signing out.